from New York. No, we are in Laguna Woods, and it's the Laguna Woods Show with your host and moderator, Esther Grossfield. Here's Esther.
Hi, welcome to Laguna Woods Show, where every guest matters. Today we have a very special guest. He's going to talk about memory loss, and his name is Dr. Steven Saveloff. Hi, Doctor.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me back.
Yeah. So what is your background?
My background is, I was a neuro and clinical psychologist for 45 years in various medical settings. And my most recent position before I retired was with 15 neurologists in Sun City, Arizona. And so I worked in lots of medical settings. I would go around in hospitals to assess whether or not the patient was able to go home or have to go to an assisted care facility. I'm also a clinical psychologist, so I also assess their mood and how much that's interfering with their ability to function.
So we're talking today about memory loss. Mm-hmm. What causes memory loss?
Well, that's a big topic because it's a very complex situation. Yes. So there are many causes, and when I used to do assessments, I used to start with the birth experience or the pregnancy, because a lot of things can go wrong in the pregnancy, such as, the cord around the neck, lack of oxygen to the brain, to the child's brain, when they're being born, complications when you're going down the birth canal, and then when the baby is born, we have what they call APGAR score, which kind of determines how vibrant the child is. So a lot of those factors go into it. And then we have the health of the mother and her nutrition and her what she ingests in herself, because what she ingests goes into the baby, such as drugs, alcohol, smoking. All those things do affect the baby's brain. And so then, that's what we start out with, and we also start out with, if I'm doing a child, I usually ask about developmental milestones, such as walking, talking.
If something happened to him in the childhood, when he's born, does it affect him later in life?
Oh, yes.
Later in life?
Yes, more so, because the brain is not formed. It's it's still growing.
Oh,
so
really?
You have a small brain, and the child's ability to withstand trauma to the brain is affected, and it's more affected when you're younger than it is when you're older.
And then when you get older, like 50s, 60s, whatever, this is the memory is that causes to lose the memory. Is it from childhood? Is it from?
No, it's a number of factors. It's also has to do with a person's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now, people who are very sedentary, who sit and watch television.
Yeah.
I had a couple who I saw who I asked them what their day was like, and so they said in the morning they get up and they watch their soaps, and I said, well, what do you do in the afternoon? Well, we watch our favorite quiz shows. And what do you do in the evening? I watch my evening soaps. And so you get a sense that this person's brain is not really being stimulated, because watching TV is a very passive activity. Stuff is coming into you, and you're not doing anything to help your brain to in that regard. So there, like I said, there are many factors, and you have to kind of take an integrated, holistic approach to the person's lifestyle.
You mentioned that if somebody works in a place that has fumes, that affects them too.
Yes. I worked for 12 years up in the Seattle area, where they have the shipbuilding offices,
Yeah.
or where they either take apart or put together large ships for the services. And I had a lot of patients who were in their 30s and 40s who qualified for early Alzheimer's, and that had to do a lot with their alcohol intake, their
Yeah.
smoking,
Yeah.
their taking in toxins.
Yeah.
You know, like for instance, the shipbuilders, they are exposed to a lot of different chemicals.
Yeah.
But there are other, you know, like hairdressers, mechanics, people who do nails. You know, when you go to a nail salon.
Yeah.
You know, carpenters, because they're using shellac and so on. Sometimes they do it not outside.
Yeah.
So, you know, various types
Wow,
of.
the fumes can really affect the
Oh
brain,
yeah,
huh?
oh yeah. Well, you gotta understand that anything you put into your body
Yeah.
is going to affect your brain. It's going to affect your body. It goes in the bloodstream.
Yes, yes.
Just like I said, you know, the mothers who ingest chemicals, it affects the baby's brain. So,
Yes.
so it affect, you know, and the issue is it's an accumulative effect, because let's say you start out as an average person and you take in, you know, toxins and alcohol and so on and so forth, and you lose some memory functioning. Well, that might take you down to below average range, versus somebody who is in the gifted area, let's say 130 IQ and above. They have more latitude, so they may go down into the above average or the average range in terms of intellectual functioning. So, you know, that's another factor, is how, you know, what kind of grades do you get in school? You know, what kind of jobs you had? You know, if you were a rocket scientist and then they come in for memory problems, you know that they have what we call pre-morbid. They had pretty good brain functioning, and then the brain functioning dropped. And as a neuropsychologist, we would test these people to see where they stand with their peers. So let's say a 50-year-old man,
Yeah.
who we would compare to other 50-year-old men, because we have norms as to what is expected at this age, which is nice, because then you can see, you know, whether or not the person has lost, you know, brain functioning.
So people in the 60s and above, or 50s, what is the most common memory loss that they experience? Like,
Well, there is, you know, some.
they forget names?
Yeah, there is some brain functioning that is diminished as people get older, but the newer research shows that our brain has neuroplasticity, and what that means is it has the ability to replace other neurons in the brain. So we found that people, let's say for instance, they did a study on taxi cab drivers in Paris, and they did an MRI on their brain, and they found that the area for perceptual motor area in the brain was a lot larger than the normal, because they're using that more. So the idea here is either you use it or you lose it.
Yeah.
So, you know, people who, let's say, are musicians, that part of their brain is a lot larger than the normal.
Really?
Yeah, than the normal population.
Wow.
So you have, you know, you kind of have to, like I said, use it or lose it.
Wow, that's very interesting. So people that are depressed, for example, do they have a memory loss?
Well, excuse me. Memory loss can be affected by depression, and it has to do with the neurochemicals in the brain. So when you are doing positive activities such as relaxation or exercise or meditation, it actually increases your levels of serotonin, which is stimulated by the antidepressants if you take an antidepressant. Or the same thing can happen if you exercise, moderate for 30 minutes a day.
What kind of exercise, like walking?
Walking, running. They talk about in the studies moderate exercise, not excess and not.
What about people that are not mobile? They cannot move.
Well, they can do things for their brain. They can read, they can sing, they can learn an instrument.
Really?
They can do lots of things to stimulate their brain.
Singing does make a
Oh
difference?
yeah, singing actually increases the levels of endorphins, serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine in the brain, which helps to keep the integrity of the brain. Now, when you're under stress, you have just the opposite. You have high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, and it turns out that those chemicals, those neurochemicals, actually destroy your levels of the good chemicals of norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins. And so lots of your view of the world is dependent upon your neurochemicals. And some people will say, well, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you start doing these activities and then it rises, or whether or not you do, you take external chemicals to raise your levels and so on. So people who are more in the holistic approach typically are in what we call lifestyle management. There's exercise, nutrition,
balanced meal,
socialization.
Yeah, what's so important about being social?
Well, if you are isolating yourself,
yeah,
there's nobody to interact with, and so your brain is not
thinking.
It's not, there's nobody. I think there's a natural, innate tendency for everybody to be social.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, some people, through their bringing up and so on and so forth, choose to be by themselves.
Yeah.
Perhaps they had bad experiences with other people.
Yeah.
So, but socialization, when you're having a good time with your friends, or you're singing a song with your friends, or playing an instrument with your friends, and all those things.
Or laughing.
And laughing, yeah.
Laughing with your friends.
Yeah, in fact, I think they had a class here called Laughing Yoga.
Yes.
Yeah, and that tends to increase those good neurochemicals, and that's what they do.
So what are the ways to slow down the memory loss? It's like, how can we slow it down?
Well, one of the things you can do, this goes for people who have, sleep apnea.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they get diagnosed, but they don't use their CPAP machine, which, as you're sleeping, puts more oxygen into your brain. Otherwise, you're getting very little oxygen for 8 hours that you're sleeping, or maybe even during the day.
Yeah.
So that's one thing people can do. They can they can wear helmets when they're driving a motorcycle. They can use their seat belts. What happens let's say in crashes and so on, is that your brain is surrounded by cerebral fluid, and so your brain is kind of floating in there. So if you have a sudden stop, like in a crash, your brain kind of goes back and forth, side to side, depending upon where the impact comes, and it shears off some of the brain, because there's bone in there that shears off some of the neurons and some of the nerves and so on and so forth. So you have to drive carefully. You have to, like I said, when you're on a motorcycle or bicycle, wear a helmet. Do everything you can to protect the integrity of your brain. You can, instead of having a 6-pack of beer, maybe have 2 beers. Or instead of having, a pack or 2 packs a day, maybe have a half a pack, or just cut down.
What about dehydration? People that don't drink enough water, does it affect them?
Dehydration?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anything that affects your body is going to affect everything in your body. So dehydration can involve, irregular heartbeat.
Yeah.
It can involve, the neurons being killed off, because you do need
Really?
liquid. I mean, what is our body? It's 90% liquid.
Yeah.
And if it's down, then the body
Really?
body can't function.
Wow, so it really affects the mind.
Right.
If you don't have enough liquid, huh?
Yes. So
Wow.
it's good to keep hydrated. So I grew up in Arizona, so I always carried a bottle of water with me.
Yeah. And then I read somewhere that infection, sometimes if somebody has an infection, something happens to the memory.
Infection is attacking the body.
Yeah.
Bacterial infection.
Yeah.
Or a viral infection. So the other thing that goes with infection is high fever. So when you have a high fever, it cooks the brain.
Wow.
So if you have a prolonged high fever and subsequently may have a seizure, again, that's going to affect the integrity of the brain.
Wow, really?
Oh yeah.
High fever?
Yes, prolonged high fever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they put people in ice baths, to bring their fever down as quickly as
Wow.
they can. Yeah. The brain is such that all the recent memory and decision making and so on is in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and the long-term memory is put in, or is kept in, the hippocampus, which is over here on the right side of the brain. And so we find that in dementia that it affects the front part of the brain, and so that's why when you talk with somebody who has dementia, they can remember past memories, but they have a hard time with what they had for breakfast today. So that's the way dementia works. Is starts in the front part of the brain and works its way back. So let's say if you can, take a acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, which is one of the memory medications.
Yeah.
It can help cut down on the interference of, let's say, chemicals in the brain that tend to affect your memory.
How does it happen? Sometimes people don't remember things, they don't remember, maybe they had some kind of accident or something, and people don't remember anything for about a year or something.
Right.
What is that all
That's
about?
probably related to post-traumatic stress disorder, which a lot of people who are in accidents or who have traumatic incidents such as rape or physical attacks or whatever, they're to try and preserve their integrity. The brain automatically forgets that, and what usually happens is that people don't want to relive that. So I used to work with people from the service and people who've been raped and so on, and the memory is stored in there as if it is happening all over again. So every time they revisit, they have the same smells, they hear the same noises, and so on and so forth. So most people try to avoid that. But in a therapeutic situation, the person can, feel more comfortable, relaxed, and so when you're relaxed, you can revisit it rather than be in the fight or flight response. And eventually the neurons in the brain will lessen around that incident, and you'll be able to go on with your life.
I read somewhere that if somebody forgets a name of somebody, if they want to remember that, they should associate it with something.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, some people have these different strategies.
Yes, yes.
Such as, this person looks like an elephant, this person looks like a cat or whatever, but you associate the name with that animal or word or whatever. Yeah.
And maybe that's what people should do, huh?
Well, I remember when I was in graduate school, I had what they call mnemonics. Mnemonics is you make a word out of, or a phrase out of remembering the first letter. So when I had to remember the 12 cranial nerves, I had on old Olympus Tower in Tapa viewed, a Finn and German viewed some hops. So, I was able to go down each letter and remember, especially for an exam.
Wow, maybe
Yeah.
people should do something like that.
Yeah, mnemonics are very helpful for people.
Maybe they should start doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I heard that there's a new club here that's like a brain club. Have you heard about that? It's something new.
I've heard of it, but I have no information about
Yeah,
it.
that would be a good idea, just to check it out and see what they
Right, what they're doing.
Yeah, what they are doing.
Right.
And maybe we
I
can
mean, I
learn
know
from-
there are, things online that help you to stimulate your brain. They go through various exercises and so on.
What kind of exercises? Like,
Oh, there's one called the Trails test, which is you have numbers and letters, and you have to go 1 to A, 2 to B, 3 to C, but they're all over the page. And so that kind of tests a little bit about your concentration, which is one of the things that's really helpful about meditation. It increases concentration, it increases focus, it lowers blood pressure, it relaxes your muscles. Your breath rate and your heart rate go down, and that's very good for your health.
so meditation can slow down the memory loss?
Right.
Wow,
And increase your brain's capacity to remember.
that's very interesting.
They've also done studies about using meditation for children and adults who have ADHD.
Yeah.
That they learn to rewire their brain to be able to concentrate and focus and not be as irritable.
There's so many, in the news, there are so many people that are committing suicide because they're depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Can we touch it a little bit? It's like, what are the signs that we should look for? You mentioned
Right.
one time that just when
Right.
people start giving away things, that's not a good sign.
They start giving things away. They've changed their routine. They're not engaging in their usual activities. They're like for instance, when I worked for the LA Suicide Prevention Center, I used to ask, "Have you ever tried this before?" Because if you tried it before, it's more likely you're going to do it again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And do you have a plan?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
Somebody has a plan that it's at higher risk than somebody who doesn't.
You asked the person if they have a plan for what?
For suicide.
Really?
Oh yeah.
And they said yes?
Some say yes, some say no.
Wow.
But
Really?
these are kind of the factors that you look for in assessing what we call lethality.
Yeah.
In terms of how likely a person's going to carry through with it. I mean, some people just have it in their mind and they never do it. But some people who have a plan, who are giving things away, who are withdrawing,
And don't want to see people.
and they don't want to see people, and sometimes they do it out of anger because they're mad at somebody and they're going to get even with them by killing themselves.
Wow. And some people call it like it's a selfish thing, but it's not, because they're suffering.
Yeah, I used to ask my suicidal patients, can we think of another way to deal with the situation other than killing yourself?
Yeah.
And so we kind of made a list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you save a lot of people?
Well, at the LA Suicide Prevention Center, I was there for 2 years. Most of them, I had one or two who had already
Tried?
who are already in the middle of taking substances. Like,
Wow.
I had one patient who had taken Drano.
Drano.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So what happened to him?
He got sent to the hospital. He had, second and third degree burns in his esophagus, and he survived, but he has this lifelong problem with
his stomach.
Yeah, with the.
Did he call you after he took the Drano?
Yes, yes.
And he said, I don't want to die?
Right.
Oh my God.
They didn't actually say, I don't want to die. They said they wanted to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And so my wife got on the phone and called the police department and the ambulances and so on, and so they showed up.
Drano.
Drano.
I mean, why would you take
Well, the
Drano?
more bizarre the person's mode of suicide, the more unhealthy, mentally they are. I mean.
Wow. Drano, that's not, that's.
Of course, that could affect the brain.
Yes.
All these substances that people,
I wonder if he ever got healed from the Drano.
I really didn't have any follow-up on that one.
Wow. So what is I know that dancing's supposed to be good too.
Mm-hmm.
Dancing,
Any
like what
fun
kind of
activity.
dancing? What kind of dancing
Any
is the
kind
best?
of dancing. Anything that's fun.
With steps.
And it's pleasurable.
That have steps and they have to learn the steps. Maybe
Well,
that's
yeah,
a good
learning
one.
the steps is new
And
learning.
it's fun.
Yeah. Any new learning, anything that you learn new helps to create more neurons in the brain.
Is that what it is, huh?
Yeah.
A person should
But
continue learn.
I had people who I saw who had Alzheimer's, and they couldn't remember,
The steps?
no, they couldn't remember recent things.
Yes.
But like, for instance, this one gentleman who was a CPA, he could still do people's books. He could still, because of it, it's a long, he was doing it for 30, 40 years, and it's ingrained into the brain, so it's kind of automatic.
He can still do the books, but
Right, he couldn't
he was
drive, he couldn't,
Oh.
he had a hard time with reading.
Wow, you know what? We're running out of time. It was so good having you here. We have so much information, and people will start doing some activities
Yeah.
to keep their memory.
Right. The only thing I would add is if people are concerned about you, you should take it seriously, because they're the objective observers. So if you're concerned, you should have a neurologist evaluation to see the integrity of the brain, let's say through an MRI, and also see a neuropsychologist, kind of see how you measure up to other people your age.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Thank you for watching, and next time we'll have another interesting person.